Hello, my name's Edwina and I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about BTEC law. One of the subjects that you might study if you choose to do BTEC law, and this is unique to BTEC law, is a topic called police powers. We'll look at what powers the police have, what rights that we as potential suspects have as well, and during that we might have a little bit of discussion about whether the police have too many powers or whether they don't have enough. Depending on your point of view, you might think they've got too many, others might think they have not enough. Now, just a little bit of introduction to the main act that we actually look at, which is commonly referred to as PACE. That stands for the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. And the Police and Criminal Evidence Act was actually initially passed following a series of cases, actually, miscarriages of justice, but in particular the case of Maxwell Confate, who's pictured here, who was a male prostitute who was murdered in the 1970s. And following his death, 3 young boys were arrested on suspicion of his murder on the basis that they'd been caught setting fires in the local area, and Maxwell Confate's body had also been set on fire at a local pub. So the police arrested these boys. They interviewed them without a solicitor, without an appropriate adult. The nature of the questioning was quite aggressive and oppressive. These were boys all under the age of 18. They were children. And eventually one of the boys confessed to the killing. Another boy confessed to being there. And so all boys were convicted at trial of the murder of Maxwell Confate. As it turns out, they were in fact completely innocent. They hadn't killed Maxwell Confate at all, and they were released many years later. And after that case, there was a huge review. There were serious concerns about how the police were conducting themselves in the arrest and detention of suspects. So following that case, there was a Royal Commission set up, which is called the Phillips Commission. And they investigated and reviewed police practice at the police station. And their answer, their solution to this problem, was the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984. And the main purpose of the Act is to achieve balance between giving the police the powers that they need in order to gather evidence, arrest suspects and prevent crime, etc., but also whilst retaining the rights of suspects so that we don't get situations like the Maxwell Confate case where innocent people are being convicted of crimes that they didn't commit. So, has balance been achieved? That's one of the key issues with the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. That's what it's trying to achieve, but in actual fact, does it? And there are a number of areas that we look at, including, as you can see on the screen, stop and search, where the police have the power to stop and search anybody in the street if they have reasonable grounds for believing that you might be in possession of a weapon or drugs or some other illegal or illicit substance. And this is a power that the police need because there is a problem with knife crime, for example, drugs, of course. But the balance here, so that's the power that the police have, but the balance is they can only do that if they have what we call reasonable grounds. So there has to be something that they've got that suggests to them that you are in possession of something you shouldn't be. Officers are not allowed to stop you on the basis of your personal characteristics, your gender, your race, religion, etc. They have to be objective in their assessment. Now, this is one of those areas where perhaps PACE doesn't achieve its goals. And it's possibly more not to do with PACE itself, but how it is interpreted and applied by the police. And this is one of the areas that we look at. So you can see from the statistics here, in terms of race, this has a significant impact on stop and search rates. And it is an issue. So for example, if you're white, you've got a 5 in 1,000 chance of being stopped and searched by the police. If you're black, it's almost 55 in 1,000. It's 11 times more likely that you will be stopped. And there might be legitimate reasons for that. So there isn't any evidence of any legitimate reasons. So the feeling generally is that the police are stereotyping, making judgments based on racial prejudice, racial profiling, etc. So a lot of people would say the balance is not being achieved. So, for example, we've got a case here for you to have a think about in your own time. You may have heard about this, it's been on the news. Bianca Williams, who was an Olympian, was stopped and searched in July 2020 whilst out with her partner and their young baby. Stopped and searched by the police. Police alleged that they'd been driving erratically, stopped them, dragged Bianca Williams' partner out of the car, handcuffed them both in front of their 3-month-old baby. You can see here on the photograph the number of police officers present for this stop and search, and the police found absolutely nothing. They were just a family just driving through London going about their business. And Bianca Williams and her partner argued, absolutely no objective evidence for suggesting that we were doing anything wrong. You've basically racially profiled us, you've stopped us because we're a black couple. Those cases, there was a review by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Those 5 officers have now been referred for an investigation for gross misconduct because of the way as well that they conducted that stop and search. Okay, so this is one of the cases that we might look at when you come and study BTEC law. We'll look at plenty of others as well. There are examples, should you wish to research them online, where juveniles have been strip searched, for example. It was recently in the news at school, in the presence of male police officers as well. Clear breaches of pace there. So it's clear that there are lots of issues with how the police use these powers that have been given to them, which suggest that pace isn't quite achieving its goals, and that the police have perhaps either got too much power or they're abusing it. Now, in the interest of balance, some people would argue that actually pace has given far too much protection to suspects. And one case in particular that highlights this point quite well is the case of Christopher Halliwell. Now, Christopher Halliwell is suspected of being a serial killer. He is currently serving a life sentence for 2 murders, but originally he was only convicted in relation to 1, which was the murder of Sian O'Callaghan, who was a young girl he picked up posing as a taxi driver and murdered on her way home from a nightclub. And on arrest for that murder, he confessed to another girl, Becky Godden-Edwards, who nobody even knew was missing, let alone was dead. Now, what should have happened is that he should have been taken to the police station, according to Pace, given his solicitor if he requested one, and interviewed and questioned in a video recorded interview. And video recording interviews is designed to protect the police, and it's also designed to protect suspects from that kind of oppressive questioning. Now, the police officer didn't do that. He was concerned that Christopher Halliwell would no comment as soon as he got hold of a solicitor. There was no evidence of this second murder at all. So he didn't take him to the police station. He instead took him to the burial sites, and they found this second victim. He interviewed him on a hillside, had a civilian taking down notes of the interview. And of course, there was no solicitor present or indeed notified. Those were very clear breaches of pace, as a result of which, at his trial, all of that evidence that was gathered as a result of that conversation was excluded, and the case had to be withdrawn. Luckily, Christopher Halliwell was convicted of the first murder. If he hadn't, he would have been released and free to go and kill again. This is quite a famous case. If you wish to look at it, please Google it. There's an ITV documentary on it as well, if you feel like watching that. It's quite interesting. But there was a lot of feeling at the time that Pace has given suspects too much protection, that he was clearly guilty, he's clearly a dangerous man. The police officer acted on the spot, he acted in the best interests of the victims. And some would argue that actually this guy hasn't been oppressed. This has gone too far, suspects are too protected. So these are some of the issues that we would talk about if you come and study BTEC law. You might want to go away now and do a little bit of research and see what you think. Thank you.